Women talk about sex, and we enjoy it if a man is good. The key word if. For a lot of us, we cannot explain the rising obsession misogynistic men had with women becoming loose, both sexually and economically. For this, the producer, a man who could barely bust a nut unless it was filled with crabs, which he literally had, women had to grow up and accept that they wanted freedom. They had to gain more pain. That came with it. Diandra, who is another ex that you could just check on previous episodes, was not far in sentiment. For them, life was about the pleasure you receive, not give, and that road was hard for everyone. The strange uniqueness of privileged males trickled into my head at my weekly women's meet. "I got the rose," announced Lena. "The rose," the room audibly gasped. "For just $23.99 on Amazon Prime, you can receive what Josie declared as the ultimate O. Within 10 minutes of its usage, a 2-part master tech with 7 modes in each part." Nina was describing the rose like a car dealer would the most lavish vehicle on the lot. She did not have to tell us twice. Within minutes, we had a Prime membership, and it was coming next day. Like us. The naughtiness of the conversation stayed with me because society has a tendency to shapeshift its prejudice over actually shaping up. Our women's group started as an attempt to decenter men in our lives, especially in terms of sex. We had found the dating world to be a cesspool of male emotions and concepts that never included women's feelings or thoughts. It was still treated like objects, except this time the object can pay for itself and is overly educated, but still not as employed or as paid. Like the producer, Angelino, men had confused feminism for torture and a sincere belief that women had to earn the right to have the right to be equal. Thus, we were entering a world that was more prejudiced than ever because it thought we were freer. Here, I was using my fingers, Gigi announced. With so many Gemini placements and chronic bouts of depression, Master What had become a lifesaver for Gigi, who struggled with finding a medication balance that did not turn her anxiety into sleepiness. "It's like they think the only way I'm less anxious is if I'm unconscious," she said tearfully. And thus, touching herself and hitting the gym became physical ways to combat the physicality of her depressions that left her bedridden for months, only to reappear as if she had never gone. Yet that was a treatment to our bond as women. One of us could absolutely mentally abandon ship, and quite literally, and we would still pull in a life raft the minute she was ready. "I'm kind of scared I've gotten too good at, mastering myself," she said in a blend of pride and a genuine worry that was more shared than what she thought. "I am too," I announced. The patriarchy was right. Women were more educated, but did not realize we were also being more ourselves, and for it. We were learning about our bodies, our minds, our hearts, and our power, not simply to protect ourselves from men, but to heal ourselves as human beings. When you suffer systemic oppression based on the certain community you were born into, the group often divides between those that scream in rooftops, they are angry, others that are apathetic, and the other ones in between who feel that we should love our oppressor. Shutting down our negative feelings or commodifying them can feel like the only option. Yet it was hard to feel genuinely, spiritually elevated in a materialistic world that sabotaged us materially. With most of us in our late 20s, 30s, and early 40s, we were getting scared that we would end up alone or have to settle for someone lesser than us, and would probably spend most of our relationship fleshing out their potential to end ours in ashes. "It's why I'm trying to be celibate," Nina followed. "What is the point of having sex with men that do not even know what a G-spot is? I feel empty and at risk just trying to find someone who knows at least my body." All right, let's do this. Let's heal, let's discuss. So the rose is this miracle that every woman should try. And, if you're into it, go men. And I think what happened in that women's night was there's always this judgment on women who are I don't want to even say hyper independent. I think that a lot of oppressed communities across the board are learning things like self-respect, boundaries, autonomy, identity beyond what it is their oppressors' perception of them, and also I want to learn as a human being what I want for me. And I think a lot of times, especially people who've gone through trauma, they define what they don't want, and they think that automatically transfers in what they do. You know, like any poor person, they're just like, I want to be rich. But what does rich mean? How, who, what, where, why? You know, just explain it. And I think that a lot of people who have suffered have a checkbox in some oppressed, marginalized group are going through the 2020s into this kind of, I can't just be what I'm not, or how people define me as what I shouldn't have. And it was this night of what's really great about having women friends, particularly ones that are successful or want to be and are trying to maneuver relationships with men, is that we can laugh, not just about, you know, the craziness of men in this world, but we can laugh about the basic humanity of discovering yourself. And I think a lot of oppressed groups don't always have that pleasure. There's nothing that makes you feel more broken than being broke. There's nothing that makes you feel more savage than being racially or ethnically or genderly isolated and even abused. And, you know, Nina brought up the rose and everybody was fascinated. And I kid you not, like, there were like 8 women in the room and 8 walked away with it by the next day. And it became this real chat about the genuine fear of, it's a beautiful thing to be able to sustain yourself. It's a beautiful thing to be able to satisfy yourself. It's such a beautiful thing to know how to love you. And it also makes it disappointing when you can't find somebody else that not simply matches that love, but allows it, respects it, encourages it, inspires it. And I think for a lot of women that is a truth. And for a lot of people that are going no contact or ending their most toxic relationships, there's this kind of, I just can't believe that nobody out there can love me like I do, or at least love that I love me, respect and inspire how I love me. That's actually really shocking, especially because I think the world is really lonely. I think a lot of people feel alone. And sometimes it's shocking to me how in that loneliness, people are still superficial in how they connect with each other and how they define depth. I think it's really, really, really surprising how much people don't work on themselves despite feeling alone, and kind of, you know, use their little human interactions they have to dump on people, to disrespect or be petty. Like, we don't have forever. And I think in that women's group, it's that kind of realization we don't have forever, especially because women are aged more quickly. And there's this kind of, there still is this expectation, hey, you didn't have a house and kids by 25. And now more than ever, these generations are real. Like, if you have a house by 40, great, fantastic. I'm glad you did that. But even that's becoming a less plausible thing. And you know, we have our health, knock on wood, our education, our hearts, and we just haven't found community beyond our friendships to encourage that. You know, perfect careers, perfect dating. And I think it's because in that world, when you meet people that racially or class or gender match you, and you actually make a genuine friendship with them, there's something about that relationship that the world goes off. And you're like, why can't the chemistry and the humanity that we have between us, why can't I have it with people that are different from me? Why can't they allow that? Why can't they see that there's just a basic simpleness to humanity? And it became the big question of the night. God forbid we didn't get a little existential, especially with Gigi, that, you know, even that, she's like resorted to, you know, mastering herself, to kind of up the dopamine and even mental health, even physical health. We don't know everything that we we should know and that we think we know. And I think that's true even in terms of oppressed and oppressor dynamics. We don't know each other. We don't even fully know ourselves. And not everybody wants to be medicated or therapized. There comes a point where you could only heal so much before you realize that the world needs to heal itself. And you are healing you in a world that battles on whether it even needs to heal. And, Nina brought up her celibacy, and that's going to be coming up in future episodes. But it's almost like we're all just fasting from humanity. And we go into these women's groups, so like anybody does, to meet up their friends. And you kind of put the guard down as to why you've been fasting, as to why you've been isolating. And it's that I isolated me in response to a world that made me feel alone with me. And my hope is that one day we don't need the rose because everybody starts acting like a garden. Check out Routine Love. It just came out. Check out Daddy Recovery on every platform. Follow me. And of course, check out DiandraResolve.com for written eps.